The Chinny and the river painting is split into a few parts. We paint the sky and the background and the foreground and the big trees. So do take your time. You could practice on a little board or you could start on the big painting. What is important with this painting is the tones. Have the very pale tones of the mountains in the background and slowly come forward to your background trees, which are rather pale, and the foreground trees that are very vibrant. So this is quite an experiment to keep your pale in the distance and your vibrant colours in the foreground. And again, keep your horizon down low so your water will look flat. Hello, I'm Hend. Thank you for joining me. I call this exercise Chinny and the River. It's a scene of Mount Chincogan and the Brunswick River. We'll start by painting the sky, then the clouds, the background mountains, foreground mountains, then the background trees, and the water with reflections. Then we'll put in the banks, and then we'll finish off with the big gum trees in the foreground. The colours we use are white, that's titanium white if you're painting in oils, cobalt blue, Prussian blue, phthalo blue, crimson, warm red, warm yellow, raw sienna, burnt umber, and viridian green. You use whatever brushes you wish. I use a 2-inch house painting brush, a 1-inch house painting brush, a size 12 flat hog bristle brush, a size 12 round hog bristle brush, a small fan brush, and a selection of small soft-haired brushes for little twigs. I also use a cranked painting knife. You may paint in oils or acrylic. You can paint wet on wet, or you can wait for your paint to dry during different stages. Well, we're ready to paint our Mount Chincogan and the Brunswick River. I have here my canvas. It's a piece of artist quality canvas stuck to masonite with PVA glue. Size is 32 inches by 18 inches. And I have my palette up here so it's easy to show you what's going on. I use a chopping board for a palette rather than a normal palette. Also down here I have another palette with plenty of white on. Here we have phthalo blue, cobalt blue, raw sienna, crimson, and of course the white. If you're working in oils it'll be titanium white. Now this is my acrylic paint thinned out with water and a little bit of acrylic retarder which stops the paint from drying so fast. So let's see how that goes today. I've had a bit of a problem with my acrylic paint drying fast on these big paintings. On the smaller paintings it's not so much of a problem, but on a big painting like this it becomes a problem. And I'll pick up a little bit of phthalo blue and start in the corner, right in the corner, and as I'm painting the undercoat for the sky on, it'll give me a light blue undercoat. I do want to have a very dark blue later, so we'll work across with a light blue and blend the paints together as we go. Make sure you cover every bit of your board. It's a bit hard to come back later and touch it up. Bit of blue, bit of white. I must say the paint goes on a lot easier when you thin it and spread it out even across the top of the sky. Get more white right in the corner, crisscross brush stroke, and then spread it out. Now we'll add more blue to the corner. I'd like a very dark sky, one of these very blue skies, and then we'll have some storm clouds coming up, some beautiful white storm clouds happening. So put plenty of blue. There's a very strong colour, the phthalo blue, but we can use plenty of it in the corner there. Crisscross, crisscross. And then add plenty of white underneath. No, not blue enough. Add some more blue. And the same thing across the other side. I can clean my brush here, get some of the paint off it, put the white in there, and rub it right into the canvas. Make sure it goes right into the canvas. And because we're having a lot of clouds here, we don't have to blend the sky so well. You might want to use a smaller brush. You might be working on smaller paintings. Use a smaller brush. I'm using a 2-inch brush. And I clean my brush regularly. Keep your brush clean. Give this corner a bit of a squirt with water, and then I want to put more blue in. There, that's more like it. Now that works okay. A bit of a squirt of water and then the blue paint over the top of the other. They're still mixing together. So slowly add your blue to your sky. Make sure you get every bit of it done. And then we can work across here. Of course, if you're working in oils, you won't have to squirt it like that. And then I can clean my brush down here because I know we're going to have water down here, and it's a good idea to clean your brush down there with long brush strokes because I know there's going to be water. Now we'll put another colour up here, a little tint of burnt sienna also. And then with my painting knife we'll mix a colour, a little bit of grey in the clouds, a little bit of cobalt blue, not much crimson, just a little tiny bit of crimson. It'll turn it into a purple, and a little tiny bit of raw sienna. Don't mix your colours completely, leave this marble effect. Then with a round hog bristle brush, I'll dirty it in the grey paint. Just get a little bit of grey on it, like that. And if it's too dirty, just give it a bit of a clean, just so it's saturated in the grey paint. And then on the side of your brush, pick up a bit of white on one side only. Now the middle of painting's about there. I want to be a little bit to the side of the middle. Just so the cloud's not right in the middle, because this cloud I want it to be very dramatic. So to start the cloud I want it about there, not in the middle, about there. So the best way to start is put a mark on your painting, and that's where the cloud will start. And we want big multicumulus cloud, like that. Round and round. This time I'll put a little bit more dark on my brush, just a little bit, and the white. There, that dark's coming off a bit better now. Now, that's how we start with our clouds. Round and round and round. And here you can unload your brush like that. Take your hair out. Now on the top of the cloud I like to have a glow. So a little bit of burnt sienna in there. Not raw sienna, burnt sienna. Just a little tiny bit in there. Will give us a glow. That's a little bit too much. You've only just got to see this colour. Dirty my brush in the dark again, pick up the bright, and I'll put a glow on the top of the cloud there. I should have done this first, but it doesn't matter. That's better. Here. He's gone. And again. They're going to go through the top of the board. That doesn't matter. Maybe they should. So that's our cloud brush stroke. Maybe here. And a big golden glow in this cloud here. Round and round and round. You can follow my brush strokes here, but you won't get it exactly the same. Now I want to spread out a little bit now, so I'll clean my brush here. My acrylic paint has dried. If you're working in oils, yours will still be wet. And I've loaded the brush with dark and light again. Clean my brush again. Not quite what I want. That's more like it. Now I'm using the softer paint which I've thinned out. And a few clouds underneath. Now they need to go under that cloud. So we'll brush over the top of that one. And we better finish this side off here. That looks like that. It's a very blue sky today. Bit of white. And blend them together. There's not much colour in those clouds. I'll put a little bit of grey in the bottom there. Not much. And I'll blend it with a bit of white. And maybe a grey tone here too. So we need the contrast between the light and the dark, the grey and the white. And then a bit of contrast here too. You know, it's still not what I want. I want those great big ones like this. So I picked up the burnt sienna and white mixed together here. That's more like it. And the big one. So you can practice your clouds until you get them right, then put them on your painting. You don't have to practice them on the painting, you can practice them on a practice board if you wish. Put a bit more paint down there, and in the bottom of the sky we can have a glow with the raw sienna. That's the raw sienna that time, and a little bit of crimson, and then over the top again white, and it will glow through the white. And I've lost a little bit of blue there, so I'll put it back in. That's a bit too much, and blend them together. So we've got all these tones. We've got the raw sienna into the crimson and into the blue. Now I need to finish the sky from the distance here. Horizontal brush strokes, and clean your brush here. Mine's got a little bit of blue on, which is good. That's what we want. And I'll come in here, I'll put that tint of raw sienna underneath, and a small tint of crimson slightly above it, and then go over with the white paint. Now that white had a little bit of burnt sienna in it. That's okay. And blend up towards the clouds. And you can blend it like this. Now everything you can repair, especially on a sky. Skies are all different. We're not doing a portrait of a sky, so it doesn't matter what it looks like, as long as it's from light to dark. Now up on my sky here I have a little bit of a problem with my paint. It's all different colours, so let's have a little fluffy cloud in the distance here. I load the brush with dark on one side and light on the other. A little distant cloud here. It's a long way away, so don't detail it too much. And from a distance that should look okay. So I'll keep working to finish this one off. A little bit dark there, that's okay. Nothing exciting over here. This is the edge of the board. We don't want anything happening there. The dry brush is best, but I'll clean my brush and I'll clean it down here also. Just move your clouds a little bit. As long as the streaks are all in one direction, it's okay. Clean your brush each time, after each run over. Now it has left them a little bit streaky. It takes your sky back, gives you better perspective, and it makes it look like it's moving. Give it a little bit of weather. And of course if you want some rain, put a bit of rain in like this. Just a bit of blue on the brush there was there. Ooh, it's really raining there now. For the mountains, I've loaded my brush a little bit of cobalt blue. Let's put it on there about where the mountains are going to be, and put a little bit of white into it. So that's the colour we're going to use for the mountains. By putting it there, we can move it around to where we want it. Mount Chinny is going to be in this area here. Even though from the river you can't see Mount Warning, I'll put it in there because it is a local landmark, and this is not a portrait or an architectural drawing, it's a painting. And with paintings you make them up as you go along if you want to. Or if you want to paint a portrait of the area, you can do that too. These exercises will help you to learn to use your tools and to arrange things in the painting where you want them. You'll notice that I put the blue on and then moved the white into the blue. This way I can adjust my tones, adding a bit more white here or there. In this area there's a lot of mountains that are rather pointy, and as they come towards you they go darker. And if I put a bit of crimson down here, so I'll keep a bit of blue there. So this is my little tiny palette here, ready to change the colours. Let's go to that mountain and come forward to another lot of mountains. It's a rather rugged area back there. Grab a bit of whiting, a bit of crimson, a little bit of raw sienna, a little bit of cobalt blue. Now I'm putting them here. I don't usually do this, I usually mix them on the palette. I'm putting them here to show you what's going on. That's 2 crimson, a bit more cobalt blue, and we can adjust the tones. Well, I think the mountains would go. Maybe that one would have a little bit more of the grey tone in it. Yes, looks a bit better. Run the white up into him. Doesn't matter what shape your mountains are, try not to make them all the same shape. And here this should form a purpley grey. It would be the mountain in front of that one, something like that. I did want a bit more white in there, so I'll put it in. Just be careful you don't form any shapes you don't want. So they look like they're coming towards us, from pale blue, a little bit darker, a little bit darker, a little bit darker. I'll just tidy this up here and let that be our background mountain. From pale blue, a little bit darker, a little bit darker, a little bit darker. And I'll put a blue mist in here. Very misty in that valley. And a lot of this we mightn't see because we're going to have a lot of trees. Now Mount Chincogan will go here somewhere. That looks like it's going to be the ridge at the back of the Mount Chincogan. I'll block it in just with a bit of blue. We don't have to copy the mountain exactly. There's two sisters at the back of the mountain like that. And we don't have to see all the mountain. That's cobalt blue I'm colouring it matte in with. It's not intentional. The mountain will be a different colour. Actually, the mountain will be a lot bigger than that. Let's have a look. I think we'll take the mountain right up like this. Yep. We can have this a good picture of Mount Chincogan there. And there's a right angle on top. We emphasise that, and we're changing the shape of the mountain. The mountain is more or less that shape, but as I said before, this isn't a portrait of the mountain. This is a painting, and we're creating a picture people will look at. There's no need to worry about whether your painting is exactly the same as the mountain. What we worry more about is that it's a nice painting. So that'll do for the shape of the top of the mountain. And I've gone straight into the cobalt blue there, which is very blue. So I'll come up into it with a bit of crimson and a little tiny bit of raw sienna in the crimson. And that should knock the blue back, give us a grey tone. You can mix your colours. In fact, I better go over to the palette, we'll mix some colours. I have plenty of cobalt blue right there, a little bit of crimson, not too much, a bit of crimson, and some raw sienna, and that'll form a grey. Now mix them together, and the bottom of the grey is rather reddy and the top is rather blue. So let's use that for the top of the mountain and this for the bottom of the mountain. Pick up plenty of my brush, and I'll brush over the top of the mountain again. Well, that's a blue grey down here. We'll do this again here. That's become part of Mount Chincogan there. That's okay. And the reddy grey comes in from the bottom, so it's lighter on top than the bottom, and block all the mountain in like that. As long as you have pleasant shapes here. Now, what I call pleasant shapes is curves like that, not curves like this, just pleasant curves. And brush your undercoating at the shape of the mountain. Brush them in for the shape of the mountain, down this side and down that side and across the bottom. That's the undercoat for the mountain. And I've picked up some blue and white here. Oh, it's gone red. If you're working in oils and you come to a point where you haven't got what you want, you can scrape it off and clean your knife, and then I scrub it in. For instance here, I want a blue tone rather than a red tone. So then I'll go back with a bit of blue and white on my brush, still getting a red tone, touched up with a bit of blue, and they give me a blue tone. Put up here a little bit of Viridian green, very little bit, and a little bit more of my sloppy white, And into that I'll put a bit of raw sienna. I'll put quite a lot of raw sienna in there. And then a little bit of blue. We're mixing the tone for the sunlight on top of the mountain. Now, it's a little bit light, so I'm going to put a lot more raw sienna in it. There, that's more like it. You see those tones there? Now, here comes the Viridian green. Very strong colour. Sometimes this is just too much. I'll put it in the top there. In the top. We have to be careful not to go too green. Now that's almost the right colour. I think I need to put this in. There. That's the green grey for the top of the mountain. I'll come into a little tiny bit of grey, and that'll give us a more grey look, because that mountain's quite a way away, but it's so green around Mullumbimby. With my round hog bristle brush, I'll clean it first and then put plenty of grey on it. So there's the grey. I'll put the grey on one side, and because it's saturated with paint, it's formed a chisel point, and that's what we want. So the grey's on one side. If you're working in oils, you might need to put the grey on. Your wet paint will be grey on the mountain anyway, and a little tiny bit of colour on the tip. See that little bit? Touch it on. I think that's a little bit too brown. I prefer it go greener. Go back again. Put a bit more green in it. That's more like it. Load the brush again, and I'll take that off there and dab, dab, dab on the little trees. Make sure you start right at the top of the mountain up high. That's it. And leave some darks, not all lights. That looks about right there. I'll load my brush again and go down the other side. So you can put these little dabs all over your mountain, just like this everywhere. Try and follow the shape of the mountain. My brush is too dirty. Pick up the paint with the tip of the brush again. Now that's a bit better. Those little trees on top of the mountain. Dab, 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 dab. All the way down the mountain. You haven't got complete control over them. Some come off good, some of them don't come off so good. But them ones are okay. And have a paddock. Clean the brush like that. Straighten this lot up. You need to practice this brush stroke to get it right. And down the other side of the mountain. Ooh, nice shape here. We need a nice shape. That's it. Take it across here and up that hill and down there. You dab it on. Now we have a few goes of this. We put them on first, and then we can block out the sunlight and have a bit of shadow. So just put them all on first, and then there's a bit of shadow up here, so we'll block that one out. And any dark spots like that, block them out also. Now my brush is starting to shape right. That's better. So there's all the little trees on the mountain. If you look at the mountain, or you look at any mountain, you'll see this little tree thing. Very Australian gum tree. And the bluey tone. It's a greeny blue. This makes up our blue mountains. Of course you get different effects in different areas, but this is the Mullumbimby look. And right down over your mist. Made it a bit dark there, that looks a bit better. Put a bit more dark on my brush that time. And on the edge of the paddock. Bring it down into the mist. The mist will show through. You'll see it from a distance in a moment. That's a dark. Get rid of him. Knock him back a bit. And down the ridge. Well, when you mix your paint, make sure you mix enough because it's very hard to get the same colour again. And you won't get it exact. I never got it right yet. But you get it close to the colour. Now and then you get it right. Ooh, that went green, that bit. That's okay, it's coming towards us. And let's have a few paddocks here. I'll pick up a bit of colour, it's not quite so green. There we are. A few trees. I think it'll be better with a bit of dark on my brush. Yeah. And on the other end of the mountain, touch it up. Oh, that's gone rather blue. That's okay. That one's a bit closer to us here. Dab, 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 dab. All little bits and pieces. So the mountain's looking a little bit mottly. Oh, there's a lot of dark on that one. So the mountain does look a bit mottly, so I picked up some pale, some white with a little bit of blue and a little bit of cobalt blue. And oh, that's a bit too much. I'll clean my brush a bit and give it a bit of a mist here and there where those colours join. And give it a bit of a mist look. Mist it out a little bit. And you can bring the mist up from the bottom of your painting here. Now this is going to be trees here, so we won't see much of this. And put a bit of mist in the bottom. It looks good, the mist, I like it. It always attracts the eye. And mist it out a bit. So put the mist on and then dab it until it disappears like that, see? It disappears a bit. So this is rather blurry. This mountain's quite a way away, so you don't see it very in great detail. That's a bit dark up there, so I'll knock that back a bit too. Mist here. Now you can paint any mountain you like using this method. Just dab, dab, dab the little trees on and then mist them out. You get it all looking the same. So that's the mountains. Now for the background trees I have quite a lot of cobalt blue mixed with crimson here, and I'll add a bit of raw sienna. If I add the raw sienna it turns a grey rather than a purple, and don't mix them completely, but there's a lot of paint there because we need a lot of paint. There's a lot of trees in this picture. My palette is a hell of a mess. I always end up with a palette like that, and I'll pick up a lot of paint with a hog bristle brush. And the question is now where to put the trees. So, well, we know this needs blocking in, so let's just block in everything that needs blocking in. Don't stop here on top of your mountains, go above the mountain, go well above it, and there. So colour all that in. Don't mix your paint completely too. You'll see there's blues and crimsons coming off, all different tones coming off here, all different tones of grey, and block them in with a down brush stroke, which opposes the background brush stroke, which again gives you a bit of perspective. Even though it's an undercoat, it is important to put your undercoat on in the right direction. Block these in. These will be trees along here, not necessarily exactly this shape. There's a lot of trees up in this area here. And right up here, why not? Our river will come in here somewhere. That's too far away. I want this a close-up scene of the river. So we have to come up somewhere with big trees. Let's start there, there. I don't like that bit of mountain so much. Let's come up here. In fact, I think I'm going to come right up there. Why not? We'll have the mountain showing through there. That's it. Because down at the river you really can't see the mountain from many positions. You know it's there. You always know it's there, right next to the river almost. But it's a bit hard to see. There's not many positions you can see it. Okay, let's go right up here. Nice big trees next to the river. That's a bit more like it. And these are big trees, so they have a big area like that, where these ones have a smaller area, a smaller mushroom shape. Bits of light through the trees. And here, I do want to see the mountains though, but something's got to go. That's got to go. Let's try that. Yes, that'll do. And again, some light through the trees. Let's have some darks and lights here. Lots of trees. Lots of big camphor laurel trees and gum trees. Well, that's the background trees blocked in. And now we move into the green. So I've got warm yellow here. Of course, I've got my raw sienna still there, and it's green. And I forgot the crimson. We'll put it there. And I'll mix a colour just that's not quite white. Let's have a little bit of this and a little bit of that in it. And this is for the branches for the background trees. That's okay. Let's run a blue tint through it. And then with my round soft brush, I'll run it through the darker colours and then clean it and pick up some darker colours and some light colours, both on the brush at once. We can paint in the branches. Now the branches on this side of the painting, over this side, need to lean into the picture that way. And don't be too fussy with these, because we're going to put foliage over the top. And if you learn to use the brush with 2 fingers, you'll find that the paint rolls off and you turn the brush as you put it on. So just put in your branches. You'll put more branches in than what you need, because a lot of them will get covered over with foliage. I mean, like this. And let's have some down the bottom, see how it looks. Some might turn out all right. Be careful you don't keep them all exactly equally spaced. Break them up a bit. Not pure white. Bit of light, bit of dark. And right across the painting, just simulate your branches. These are all types of trees. There's camphor laurel trees, there's gum trees, and there's a few pines in there too. We might put some pines in a moment. And there's a smaller brush. We use that on the distant ones. I'm not real happy with this being right in the middle of the mountain. You see, it comes together and that's in the middle. And up here, through the sunlight area, I'll put the darker branches. That was just blue and white. That's all, the cobalt blue and white. Clean my brush there. Now for the foliage colour. I always have a bit of paper in my other hand, ready to clean my knife. I know we need a yellow and a bit of white to start with, so we'll put that there. And then add the littlest bit of the viridian green, like that. So that's too bright and too white. We need a bit of these colours in there too, and a bit of this colour to take it back a bit. And there we have a mixture of colours, and that'll give us the tones for the background. Now I'm going to try a little brush. This is a little house painting brush. Let's see how it goes. I'll clean it, I'll dirty it in here, I'll load it with dark paint, clean it, and then a bit more dark paint on, going towards the blue tones. And then I'll pick up, I must get it the right shape first. That's about right. Pick up some tones like that of the different colours. There's all the different colours of the greens there. And I'll start on these distant trees and start painting the foliage in. Now this is above the dark. Well, that paint's rather thick. There's a lot of paint on there. Let's try here. That's okay. I'm not following the trees exactly. Okay, not too bad. Now this tree I'm not happy with. I'll bring in the shape the other direction now. Yeah, so dab it on. I've got a bit too much paint on the brush at the moment. We'll clean that up later. That looks a bit messy. I think it'll work better on these bigger trees here. That's better. and the bigger trees up the top. That's better. You do need the dark as well as the light. Pull the brush into shape again, pick up some more paint and continue. That's the sunlight on the top of the trees. Now get them into this gum tree shape where they seem to form umbrellas. An umbrella there, one there, one there. This has got a little bit too much raw scenery, but you can't get the same every time. That's our distant trees. And then again with a little round brush, you touch up the branches, make them neat, make sure they cross each other here and there. And fill in those few branches that are missing and face them into the picture. And we can come back over this later if we wish and put another lot there. And you can wait till it dries to do that too if you wish. I'll keep using this brush. It's not the best brush, but it seems to work and it'll come good. There. And the other side. I want a lot of crispy colours here against the mountain to give us contrast. And again, I'm using the tip of the brush, just the tip of the edge, and just watching what comes off. Of course, they're not as bright as they could be. They could be a lot brighter, but we need the bright colours for the foreground. There. So you use your favourite brush when you're doing this. Sometimes you get a brush that looks great. Now that looks okay. There, it's not too bad. And a little bit of detail here and there. And touch these ones up. Make sure you come over the top. Don't let any of the dark stick out through the top of the tree like that. Make sure you have the light colour on top of the tree. You'll notice that my underneath paint is dried. So yours might be still wet. If you're painting in oils, it'll definitely be wet. If you're painting in acrylic, sometimes it stays wet. You just do exactly what I'm doing over the top. Over the top of the dry paint. Make sure you clean your brush every time you pick up paint. A few colours there. Dab, dab, dab. And on the top here, I'll pick up the bits that had a little bit more white in them. You see that? A little bit of bright on the top there. Now that's just the light, the sunlight on my brush, not the darks. There's a little bit of dark and light. So I'll put a little bit of dark and light along the top here. Gives a good contrast up against the sky. And with a little brush, a few little off-white branches. Just here and there. So that's our background trees. I think there's a little branch missing here somewhere. I'm a bit wobbly today. And that bit there, I'll go back and deliberately fix it up with a more delicate brush stroke. I still don't like it right in the middle of that gap there, but it's okay. It would have been better if the highest part of the tree was either side and the middle coming through. It doesn't matter. There, I'm sure we can make something out of that later. Clean my brush here. So now I think I'll paint water all over the bottom here. Let's paint it right across like that. That's a horizontal brush stroke. Now this will be dark here, so if you're painting in oils, don't put your white there, leave a bit for your dark. And then we can put it on if you wish. We'll scrape it off later. I've got a thinner paint here and it's going on really well, so make sure you do thin your paint so it flows off your brush. And we can have water right across the bottom of the board if we wish, or not. That'll do. With the littlest bit of phthalo blue, I'll start in the corner and brush some phthalo blue into the corner and bring it up into the white. horizontal brush strokes again, and as you come up, your brush will run out of paint. And that's okay, that's what we want. And keep it white in the distance. Let's have a lot of phthalo blue here in the corner. That's better. It's a very dark sky, so we can have a dark water here. I'm going to put a little bit of white over the top. Give it a bit of a white streak through it. Now the reflections. These reflections here will come down about like that. And these ones come down here. There. I'll darken that in. Get your colours and put your colours in. Copy what's up here roughly, not exactly. You can copy it exactly if you want to, but I don't think it's necessary. Something like that. And then before the paint dries, with your big brush, as clean as you can get it, and pull it down in the water. Then clean it, down, clean, down. Don't worry about that, we'll fix it up later. And across, perfectly horizontal. And we do the same here. Put on bits of paint. This brush is a little bit messy, but it's okay. I'll get a bit of colour on before that dries. Oh, that's gone a bit yellow. Change it big. It's okay. Doesn't matter. Pull that down into the picture. Clean the brush and across. And again, we'll take it back up in here. We might have our water run back up into there, come down, and then of course it comes down here. Put the colours on again. Just roughly, with your clean brush into the water. So that's our water laid out. I think this one needs to come here, just to keep it in perspective. This one maybe here. That's not too bad. Maybe something there. Down, down, down. Ooh, clean my brush. So those reflections are not good enough. They're okay just for a quick painting, but if we want to do a good job, let's go back to the palette and mix some proper colours. The main colour is the warm yellow we'll be using. I'll add a bit of raw sienna into it to bring it away from the very bright colours, and then the Viridian green into it. And that gives us that brilliant green. Of course the white's moving up into there, that's okay. Then I'll put a little bit of grey in amongst that. Just run it through like that. Not green enough. A bit more green, and I know I can see it's going to need more yellow. Clean my knife. More yellow. What do we got there? That's more like it. That's about the colour I want, like that. So let's mix a lot of that. And this time I'll do away with the rough brush. Let's use a delicate brush. This is a hog bristle brush, and it's shaped to a chisel point. I'm picking up dark and light. And let's use these trees for an example. We can detail them to make them look a little bit more detailed, just by taking our time a bit more. And then bring them down into the water. It's good if you can do your trees and your water at the same time like this. You will get perfect reflections if you really want to. Now I've cleaned my big house painting brush and it's dry, and it should give us a good result, just softly over the top like that. So you can see the difference, the rough reflections and the good ones. So you can work to different standards. You can work very quickly and turn your paintings out like that, or you can work slowly and have perfect reflections if you want to. Turned out yellow there, and that's just what we want again, softly. Now because I've got a little bit of a thing here, too much, up here we can put it to compensate. So I'll continue now and detail these reflections. to a better quality. Like that. If I'm lucky, I can use this brush. A mark like that, you can always fix it up, the white lines. And then we sculpture a bank in with the knife. There's all the colours on the knife there, but I picked up a little bit of white first, and that's our distant bank. Under your bright bank, always run a dark line. That knife has a little bit of dark right on the edge. I just touched it in the dark paint and put it there. Oh, that turned out burnt sienna there, that's okay. Then clean your knife well and touch it in the white paint and put a white line under the dark line. They must be horizontal. They must run parallel to the bottom of the board. That one's crooked, I'll fix him up. So that's okay for the reflections now. They look a lot better. Let's see how we go along here. Copy that one, and because it's green there and yellow, let's put a bit of green and yellow at the top here. Like that. Like that. Looks better. Up here. That should look better. And with a little brush, I can bring the perspective in with some white lines. Help to detail what's going on there. And there will be a white line there, one there, very softly. And with the lights on our bank again, sculpture them on with a knife. It's too white, I'll put some green over the top. Then a little bit of crimson. Then the dark line is slightly bigger because it's closer to us. And with a few lighter colours, we'll turn that dark line into what looks like a few rocks here and there. That was burnt sienna and white mainly. And then the white line. Because that bank comes round at a little bit of an angle, we mustn't bring our line round at an angle. We bring our line in there, and then in there, like that. And I'd like to see a white line back there somewhere to attract your eye around that corner. And then with a fan brush you can just touch up the bank here and there while the paint's still wet. And if you wish to put shadows in, you can put shadows in here and there too. And that's a typical little bank. So we need to do this right across the painting. Detail our reflections, make them look like what's above them. Light and dark. I have light and dark on my brush. I turn it that side for dark and this side for light. Pull them into the water and so on. Add the branches, not exactly, but put them in. So now I'll detail this. I'll put a little bit of pretty colour up there. Let's come in like that. The bank goes along there, so it's not too much to happen there. And down here, comes down like that. That should look better. So it is worth taking a little bit of time to do your reflections over and over. You can do them wet on wet, or you can wait till the paint dries. and work over the top. You can do reflections over reflections as many times as you wish. And you can fix mistakes, such as that mark in the water there. I'm glad it's there. I can show you what to do about that. You put a dead tree in, and then there's an excuse to have the mark there. And then with every colour you can think of on my knife, we'll sculpture in the background bank there. Just push it on, and we can fix it up. Whatever happens here, we can change it. But the idea is to get it on there and then change it into what you want to. Just a little bit more colour about there. And of course our darks underneath. You'll notice I don't use many colours. I always work with a limited palette. I find rather than use a brown, I'd rather mix my red and blue together, or my crimson and my blue together, with a bit of raw sienna, and use those colours all the way through the painting. A few brights here and there on the rocks. Now if you want to put your rocks in exactly where you want them, go ahead and put them where you want them. But otherwise, just dab them on. Just make sure also that they're not exactly the same distance apart, and they're not all round or they're not all square, that they're all higgledy-piggledy different shapes. Over here I imagine the bank would be a lot bigger. So clean my knife and put on quite a big bank here. Something like that. That went rather red, rather crimson. I'll come back with some blue over the top. My paint's thick today. When I work in oil paints, I always have to thin all my paints. But when I work in acrylics, only sometimes I need to thin the paints. Sometimes I need to thin the white to get it to come off onto the sky. Oil paints always need thinning. Now with a mixture of just white and warm yellow, let's get a nice golden blaze happening back here on the grass. Then we'll come back with our fan brush, and we'll turn it into grass with a fan brush. I'll put a bit of raw colour there. Nearly always in a landscape, it's a good idea to have a white line about in that area there, which attracts your eye to the flat ground and attracts your eye back into the picture. That looks like a big white line from here because we're up close, but when we move away, it won't be so noticeable. You see how it pulls your eye back into the distance? This could do with a bit of bright and dark on it. Bring it forward of the background. And I know along the Brunswick River, someone planted quite a lot of these palms like this. What are they? So you can put those in if you wish. You can put this type of tree in here. Norfolk Island palms. Yeah, there's a few of them. You can always put them in if you wish. I'm not going to go too much detail with that, but if you want to put them in like that. Of course, the reflection will come into the water like that. And a bit of light and dark on your little brush. You have the centre of the palm, and like that. Fix up our reflections. We'll have a bit of a shadow underneath it. There. That's our palm. I know there's a few down along the river, and while we're up close here, I'll put the white lines underneath the bank here, horizontal, very horizontal. Clean your knife every time before you pick the white paint up. And any mistakes on your painting, run over them with the white line, and they become forgiven when you put the white line over them. Come down at an angle, but the white lines are horizontal. Don't stop your white lines on a reflection where it starts and stops. Make sure they carry on the reflection. Regardless of what's there, the white line goes over the top of the lot. Always have a dark line under the bank. and a white line under the dark line. And a few white lines here and there. Just make it look like ripples. Then we tidy our grass up everywhere. You can put little flowers or whatever you wish in there. I really like these little blue and white tones of flowers. Like that. In the bank. You can cover over any mistakes with these. Oh, that's a bit too much. Looking back, that's it. Then a few here. Now that's the background finished. This is the soil colour I'm putting in here. It's crimson. That's okay. And comes up quite high there. And I'll put some blue over the crimson to give us a grey tone. And fill in all this with whatever you got on your palette, just your dark colours. Don't put any white in here. Crimson, blue, that dark green, we can put some of that in there and fill in the corner of the board. And then over the top, lightly run some yellow. It's warm yellow. And keep your brush strokes in this direction, in the direction we're going. Unload your brush there, and before it dries, turn it in the grass. Now we're going to work over this again, but at this stage, just get it to this point so it's filled in and we've got something to work with. Put the grass on like that. And all this will be finished off when we do our trees. Bit more yellow over the top. And I'm using my little house paint brush now. Even that can be used to turn it into grass. So that's our background finished. I've tidied up my palette again for the foreground. I have bright red here, that's vermilion red. I still have my crimson. Burnt sienna, cobalt blue, we'll need a bit more of that, warm yellow, viridian green, raw sienna and burnt umber, plus my white. To put in a gum tree on the other side of the river, I'm going to use my painting knife. I'll pick up burnt umber and burnt sienna and white on the other side. Oh, touch of red, touch of crimson, touch of blue, keep away from the yellow. Let's see what we get there. Mainly burnt umber and white. And I'd like a tree coming in here somewhere, not too big, about, well, let's do one here. Let's do one about there. You'll notice I've got the light on the inside of the knife, so it's on the inside here. That's to attract your eye into the picture. Now I've loaded the knife again. Let's have another one. Let's say here. How does that look? They're rather tall for beside the river. Usually they spread out near the river, but we'll put some branches coming out later. Clean my knife and reload it. And maybe we can have something like this happening. One coming like that, sort of hanging over into the river. How does that look? Okay. And it might have something like that on it. I'm careful to keep them coming into the picture. And then with both light and dark on my little twiddly brush, my soft little brush, I'll put in some branches. There, hold the brush with 2 fingers. You'll find the paint comes off the brush much easier if you just let it touch on there and let it do its own thing and twist it. Twist it in your fingers as you pull it up. Now these will be covered with foliage in a moment, so if they go wrong, it doesn't matter. I'm glad our background's pale. It's easy to see the branches over the top. I'm putting a lot of paint on there. It's quite a lot of paint. And twiddle, twiddle. Now don't need to put them all on yet. We'll put the foliage on now. And for the foliage I'll mix some more grey, and I'll put a little bit of this Viridian green into the straight yellow. That, well, not too much, it's such a powerful colour that you have to be careful. Now that was about half a match head in there, so it's very, very little bit. A bit of white went in, that's okay. And pick up the dark on one side of my brush and the light on the other side. That's both sides of the brush loaded at once. Dark on one side, light on the other. And start at the very top of your tree, the highest part of it. You need to decide where is the highest part of the tree. Mine's up about there. All good, it might cover some of those clouds. I didn't like those clouds. So we're going to start on the one that's furthest away, which is that one, right up there, like that. And then another dab. Now the dark and the yellow mix together and the yellow turns green. So I just need a little bit more yellow on there. Let it hang over the mountain, give you a bit of perspective. And then right up the top, same thing. Dab, 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 dab. I'm turning the brush, let whatever colour I want to come off. If I turn it that way, I just get dark. If I turn it this way, I get colour. So I can adjust what I need. And gum trees always seem to form this umbrella shape. So try and get this umbrella shape happening. You might prefer a different shape of your foliage. You can bring it down, each brush stroke bring it down like that. That's another way of putting gum tree leaves on. It's up to you. But I'm putting it on like this because this is the easiest way for someone to learn to put it on and to learn to use the tools. There we are. And on the top of the tree, while we're here, let's add some beautiful yellow buds. That's probably a tallowood. Oh no, it's a blackbutt. And over here, even though there's no branches, we'll put the tree in, get it ready. We can put the branches in later. Do try and keep this umbrella shape. Maybe a little bit here. And one dab there. Now my little brush, I'll put in the rest of the branches, here and there. It's a good idea to put the light coloured branches in the dark parts of the trees and the dark branches across the sunlight. So whatever's coming off your brush, if the white's coming off, move it to the dark part of the trees. And if the dark's coming off, move it to the sunlight area so you can see it. And this bit here doesn't seem to make much sense, so up there. Down in the water, we need reflection, what's happening there. Put it in like that. Bits of dark, in one here, it's quite a long one, that one coming across it there, and one there. Put the white, the dark, just roughly. And what do we got here? There's a branch, about like that. That one goes straight up, it's okay. This one comes out about like that, and this one's broken up. And a little bit of colour, not much. And then my big brush is dirty, so I'll need to use this brush down like that. Clean it, clean it, clean it every time. Straight towards you. Because if you haven't got much paint on there, it works okay. If you're working in oils, you do exactly what I'm doing, but very lightly with your brush stroke, very lightly. Now I'm going to give this a bit of a brushing because mine's dry underneath, and so I can give it to it like that and get away with it. But you be careful doing this, because if you're working in oils you'd end up with a mess. Now, like that over the top like that, and that should take it back a little bit. And then tidy up my white lines straight over the top again. These should be very pale blue lines actually. If you want to paint correctly, put very pale blue lines here. I've got a few too many white lines also. It's not necessary to put this many on. Sometimes the river, when the wind blows, you see them move along quite a lot. But because I've got so many mistakes here, I do need to put quite a few there. Whichever brush you want to use, Tidy up the bottom of the trees. I've got this burnt umber here now, so I'll need to continue it down onto the bank a little bit. Otherwise it looks a little bit odd. Because we're close here, we can use the burnt umber. And in the background, burnt umber is a foreground colour. It should only be in the foreground on this painting. And a few bits and pieces that'll give us the rocks back again. And I'll put some flowers around that. I have the fan brush loaded with dark on one side and light on the other. Let's see what we get. Oh, there's a few little flowers. So let's have a few trees on this side of the river now, not quite so big. Ooh, I put the light on the wrong side of the tree. That's alright, I'll use that down here and I'll turn it into a log. And another one. Well, we better have one here too, I suppose. Out there. Now we'll detail these with a little round brush. With a log, whenever you do a log, put it out like that. A lot of this exercise here I'm doing to show you how to do things, so I'm not trying to paint a perfect picture. We'll continue our trees and coming in towards the river. These are quite tall trees to be in an open space like this. Usually trees in an open space spread out a lot more. So these can be a bit paler because when they come towards us they get much darker. And put a dark butt on them. And we can have bits and pieces laying on the ground here. Burnt sienna and white there, and a bit of burnt umber in it. That's okay how it is. I'll put a white line down the inside of this tree. And again with our foliage brush, dark on one side, light on the other. Dab it on. This is a size 12 round hog bristle brush. It's gone to that shape because I stood it up in the cleaning bucket, but it's quite handy the way it is. Dab, 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 dab. Don't make it square because the board's square. Don't make the top of the tree square. Be careful there. It happens sometimes. And so that's a grey purple. That's a blue grey plus mainly the yellow. There's a little bit of green in that yellow, but it's mainly yellow there. Clean the brush and pick up more paint and then get a few distinct brush marks in front of that background foliage. Not quite what I want. That's better. And this tree looks a bit odd, so I'll touch him up too. And then with our little round brush we can touch up all our branches. I think white branches look okay back here, but they should be off-white, not pure white. Slightly off-white. Mine are mixed a little bit with burnt umber. The branches on the gum trees are very white, especially around Christmas time. They go brilliant white. And they have a fleshy colour. Now on my brush I have a little bit of bright red. I'll just touch it a little bit here and there on the trees. Now not much. On our forward gum tree here we're going to have a lot of red. But on these background ones you just need that little tiny bit to give you that hint of red on those trees. The ones back there we don't need it because they're too far away. And just do a few dabs, tidy up. What always looks good is a little bit of bright in situations like this. It takes your eye through the trees and you see something bright in the distance. Now we have another look at our arrangement. I've made my tree the same shape as the board. I'll change this. Let it go off there. That's better. Then maybe a branch going out. Through here I'd like a big tree. You don't need to put it in if you don't want to, but I want to show you how to paint them. Come down through there. That's one big gum tree. Brush him in. That was just white paint on my size 12 hog bristle brush. And the idea is to put it on and then move things around to where you want them. Let's have a branch coming here and cutting in there. Why not? Oh, it turned green. Oh well, it's a green branch. And because that branch is so big, the tree will be bigger down here. And let's have another tree right through there. Now don't put it on the intersection where these join. Become confusing if it's there or there. If it comes through there, it has to come through the middle of that. This one can slope that way, and then it needs to come back to the riverbank here. Something like that. So I've got a bit of paint down there, it's easy to pick up. There, like that. Clean the brush. And it should have branches. I'm not real worried about my clouds. If they turned out perfect, I wouldn't have put the tree in. But it'll take practice to get to learn to use the brush if you haven't been painting before, but it doesn't take long. I have to hurry along because before the paint dries, I want to put these tints in. There's a red tint there. Now that's warm red, that one. I'll run it down the inside of all the trees. Warm red, these are all the same sort of tree. They're possibly blackbutt. And warm red there. Ooh, that became big. That's all right. It's a bigger tree now. And on the outside of the trees, this side, let's say that's the light side and this is the shadow side. I'll run crimson down here. Crimson and crimson down the outside of this one. So I'm twisting my brush. I twist the brush and the paint comes off as I wish. Keep these white. And here I've got the littlest bit of Prussian blue. Put a bit here and there down there. Because we do need the three colours in the tree trunk. There is three colours in everything like this. There's yellow, blue and red. Blue is a different blue from the background, therefore it'll give us a little bit of contrast too. And I'll add some white down, let it run off my brush there. Unload the brush here and brush it all in. But when you get used to it, you'll get used to using whatever's on your brush. If you've got something on your brush like the log there that is useful, well, you can turn it into something rather than reload your brush. And all the colours are on my brush now, so I can do these branches and they'll come into the right colours. Now I'll show you how to fix up all those bits, so don't fiddle around with it. And I'll load plenty of white on this tree because I want it to glow. The other colours will show through. Don't brush it in until there's nothing happening, just put it on and leave it. Now here's where you do need to be careful. I've loaded my brush with plenty of white, or not too much. I'm going to use the tip of the brush and I'm going to run a white line right down the inside of the tree, and that'll give us a bit of perspective. First of all, I'll run it on this one and I'll show you what I'm doing on the other one. I'm twisting the brush, turning it, so the white line comes off, and it works every time. It'll work. I'm holding my hand on my other hand too, you see, to steady it and pull it down like that, and I'm pushing quite hard on there. Turn it, turn it, turn it. Again. Down and turn it as I come down. Run the paint on. Have a look now. You see how it comes off the brush? Turn the brush and it rolls off the edge. There and here. Now with the knife loaded with burnt umber, you can use a brush if you wanted to do this. All these bits and pieces of the tree where they join, we'll load it on. I'm sculpturing paint on. I'll put the paint on and then I'll move it around. The knife has got lots of paint on it at the moment and it's missing. I put a bit of paint there. I know I need a lot down here, so I'll sculpture the bottom in here like that. Up and down, up and down. Don't move it this way. Up and down. And then I can go back and tidy that up. Let the paint mix together. If your paint's dry by now, that's okay too. If you're a slow painter, you do exactly what I'm doing also. And all these intersections need to have bark. Now let's have something happen here. So you can see that branch definitely goes behind the other one. And across here where there was a bit missing, now you can do it with your brush or the knife. In that little bit of red. just a little bit. Gum trees have brilliant red on them. If you have a look, you'll see that some of the gum trees, the red is amazingly bright, especially after a storm when the air is very clear. I think I could do with some more on there. They're a beautiful tree to paint because they're all odd shapes, so it doesn't matter. It's very hard to make a mistake. And here we can have some sort of a knot happen here. And out of the knot, I often have branches. I need a white branch because it's too dark in the background, so to bring it forward I've had to put a white branch there. And while there's a bit of paint on my brush, hanging off like that, bits of bark hanging off the tree, here and there. Any mistakes in your tree, any holes, just turn into a bit of bark. So it looks like I need a butt on this one. Now with this burnt umber, I'm using pure burnt umber here. It would be a better idea to mix some of your blue and crimson in with the burnt umber. Make sure the tree meets the ground. And again here, into the ground. Now I've got a lot of red on my knife now. Put it in like that. I don't advise you to come back over it with a brush. Put it on and just let it happen. Let it go where it wants to. As long as you just do that, it usually turns out really well. And down this side, a bit of white, a bit of white. Now this is a great opportunity here to put a bit of bark hanging off. Like that. Here again. And clean your brush down here. I'd like to run a branch out, but I wouldn't like to put it through our mountain. So we can run it up and drop it off. I need a lot of white on there to make it stand out. Even brighter. You need to make your own arrangement. You might need this branch here. You might need the tree here. So up the top again. We'll finish our branches off. You might want to take your time. I twiddle the brush, 2 colours on. I don't worry what the colour comes off. White might come off or dark might come off, it doesn't matter. Make sure branches cross each other. And I'd say there'd be a branch something like that there, because of the shape of the tree. Now my palette's back to its usual mess, so I'm just mixing all the colours together. That was burnt sienna and the green, and I won't put the raw sienna in, that'll lighten it, but I'll put that very dark green in, blue, crimson, and all those colours together, because we just need a bit of foliage now. And I'll put a heap of yellow up there ready too. Now, this brush doesn't look very healthy, but it might work. Dirty it on one side with the dark, pick up the light on the other side, and this will turn green because as soon as another colour touches it, it'll turn green. As soon as a bit of blue or green touches it, it'll turn dark green. And let's go to the top of the tree. Dab, 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 dab. I want these brush strokes to look different than other brush strokes because they're much closer. Put them on like that. You don't want to come down too far because the mountain's just under there. Give them a bit of a run down. A bit of a down look. There. That's the effect I want. Not too much, just that little bit of a down bit. There's 2 colours on the brush at once. And I imagine there'll be a bit down there. Be careful here you don't leave an area that will attract your eye. If there's a big blue bit there, it'll attract your eye. So have enough foliage to cover any big blue bits. But you still must keep your tree looking in perspective or looking like a gum tree. And here, now that's the edge of the board. I'll keep away from there. I can have the blue bit there, I'd say. But here, I want a bit hanging about there. Now it's up to you where you put them. Think about it before you put them on. You see how that attracts your eye out of the picture? We're going to have to stop that. And that will stop your eye travelling up the outside of that tree. And maybe we have to have a couple of bits here. We'll try that. And then with a little round brush and some very pale tones, put in a few smaller branches here and there. Not a lot. That might do. And I just use the rest of my paint up to give us some foliage down here. This can be very dark and very light, this bushes down here. There we are. Just a few little bushes down there. Now, what have we got and what do we need to improve the painting? I think a little bit more yellow back here to match the yellow in the foreground. Maybe a tip on that tree on one side. Bring it forward a little bit. And this branch is in the middle of the picture, but it doesn't stand out, so let's run a white line from it down into there. Another one. Have to be careful here, hold the brush with 2 fingers. You don't need this branch if you don't want to put it in. And then a dark line to run beside it. And there's always bits and pieces laying under these gum trees, so we must put that back in. That's better. And just tidy up a few bushes. What else? Still not happy with that white line. I think that's better. And a white line to break this here. Those white lines are confusing. They look like they join onto the tree. Let's knock them back with a bit of colour. I guess if we put a twig on the log, it'll look more like a log, won't it? There we go. That's our Mount Chinny and the Brunswick River.